BMW have been a powerhouse of ideas under their charismatic American designer boss, Chris Bangle. Here's one of his creations called the Z9 Gran Turismo. Using a refined V8 diesel, this was one of the first testbeds for BMW's multi-controller knob, now seen in the new 7 Series cars. After all, why have lots of switches when one can control all?
It's a whole philosophy of the car. Driving should be simple. We shouldn't be overdone by the complexities of radios and telephones and heaters. In this car, we tried to make the absolute simplest, most intuitive way to handle all of those. We use a simple control device here to activate the car. Now the car knows that I'm here, it's alive, it's awake. And a single control knob here with push and turn functions, very simple, and a north, south, east, west dividing function brings me through the whole menu, from CD changing to radio stations to the heaters to the navigation. At the same time, my eyes never have to come down here. They stay up on the road because the visual display is up high on the instrument panel. That separates the intuitive hand functions, which are very simple, from the eye functions, which have to be connected to our driving experience. That's a whole new philosophy of ergonomics. That's not just making people conform to a machine. That's making the machine work like people really need to drive.
Well, I wonder where this girl's going in the Z9 Gran Turismo concept. It looks like it's back to base at Munich. This really is a stunningly stylish tourer that takes existing BMW designs and pushes them forward, as design guru Chris Bangle explains.
The idea behind this was to use modern technology, all the modern elements that are in BMWs today, from aluminum space frame chassis to this great V8 diesel that we now have, and put them together into one concept that says, this is what we believe could be fantastic driving for you. The outside, of course, wonderful styling, an emotional aesthetic that takes what we know as BMW, the lines, the curves, the kidneys, and interprets them in a new feeling, but that feeling of dynamic. Not only that, but also an interior that gives someone that feeling of, this is openness. I am now in control of a car, not because I'm confused and have to learn how to work the car, but rather the car responds exactly as I want to.
So we asked Chris to talk us through the philosophy of the front grille.
It's always hard to pick out a few highlights from a concept that hangs together as well as this one. You kind of tend to fall in love with everything. But if I could, there's some interesting elements about it which show how the traditional BMW graphics, lines, forms, they can all be interpreted in a new way, and that's what keeps this mark always fresh. There really isn't any line on the car that you don't find on a normal BMW today. From the headlight forms we see here, they owe something to the 3 Series. That's the first one to come out now with this sense of aggressive eyes. To the hood forms, the power dome that we call it, really sits on top of that powerful V8 diesel engine there. This is also lines we have today, but the first time we've run it all the way into the kidneys. Kidneys are a good example. In the past we worried about if they were taller or shorter or wider, but now we're thinking about the kidneys as a part of the design, the jewelry in and of themselves. Do all the lines play with the car right? And here you see how we've even changed the form of the blades in the kidneys to continue the power dome line from the very front of the car, clear up over the car in the A-pillars back onto the tail of it.
Now, are you beginning to understand how top car designers think? I'm sure I wouldn't notice the exact proportions of the blades within the famous kidney grills, but maybe subtle nuances like this do affect me subconsciously. The passion and attention to detail continues in the work Chris has done in the interior.
The car starts its color on the outside, of course, with this beautiful ice blue, and that continues on the interior with high-tech materials that cover the steering wheel and also the center console and the doors. In the seats, the blue suddenly takes on a copper tone because it's got real copper fibers in it. And the floor area is a dark reddish tone from the leather. It's a parquet leather floor. And this whole combination of aluminum from the side pieces that we use also in the frame of the car, but here as a light color contrast, the copper and cloth of the blue in the interior, and this wonderfully rich leather of the floor. It's a beautiful combination. It's lightness, it's modernity, it's this sense of avant-garde living because you have really the best materials.
Of course, creating a concept car is only the beginning of the project. You've got to tell the world about it. So we tagged along with the media crew who had to take the first pictures of Chris Bangle's new baby. While he stayed behind at base, fretting that the film crew would scratch it, we found a location so remote it probably didn't even have a grid reference. Once the weather had been checked and the precious car taken carefully to our location, the long and tedious process was started in order to prepare the car to look its best for the lens. Just like a film star in the makeup chair for hours, this concept was polished, buffed, sprayed and moved around while test shots were taken. No bit of gravel was left unturned that would appear in the final pictures. We were astonished with the level of detail taken, but it would be a disaster if the first press shots appeared as if they were snapped on an old Instamatic in a car park, wouldn't it? A whole day went past with endless shots being taken against the strange backlit scaffolding which had been chosen. I suppose they found it artistic to have 10 dummies in shadows behind with one live model in front. At least the dummies weren't bored hanging around for hours and hours. But at last, the team seemed to be pleased with the shoot, and we were lucky enough to be rewarded with a fantastic sunset so that different types of pictures could be taken. Finally, some shots on the move were needed, so our German friends attempted some that are called tracking shots. Here, the photographer simply gets in the back of a car, fully harnessed, and chooses a suitable shutter speed in order to get the speed effect on the finished pictures. But don't try this at home, folks.